Hola,
Hola,
buen
buen
dia.
dia.
This week, our friends joined us from Canada for their first ever European vacation. So hopefully, we show them a good time in Europe, and we're going to bring you along for the ride. Our friends arrived in Porto on a Sunday. Interesting to note, if you would like to do port tasting, it's not available on Sundays. Fortunately, there is a lot to do in Porto. So we spent our day exploring the Porto Ribeira. Not sure if I said that right. It's basically the old town of Porto along the river, as well as the wine district. So the next day we had an early start and we had a brunch, a picnic brunch in the Crystal Palace Gardens. And we made our way over to the wine district and we had a port tasting at Kopke, followed by a second lunch at a restaurant. So we were instructed that when you're in Porto, you must try a Franchesinha. So it's basically a ham and cheese sandwich that is covered in melted cheese and gravy. It was delicious, very filling, but delicious. And then we made our way home.
We picked our friends up at the airport in Porto, and we're now at the Airbnb rental. It's very beautiful.
We
So
can't
you
see
can
you.
see the code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's the same as my luggage.
And coming into the apartment, because there are 4 of us, so 2 couples, they've already set the pull-out sofa up as a bed for us, which is very nice. So there's the little kitchenette, and they leave you with coffee and sugar for the morning, as well as tea. So there you go. The toilet. Boop. And the shower, which is very cool. I like that funky textured wall. It almost looks like the sand on the bottom of the ocean floor. And then the sink is separate.
Table wine, in terms of percentage of alcohol, stays in between 12 and 16 degrees, more or less. And in terms of percentage of sugar, has more or less 10 grams of sugar per liter. Port, in the other way, has 20% of alcohol, always. The minimum you find is 19.5. In terms of percentage of sugar per liter, has in between 30 grams of sugar and 150 grams of sugar per liter. Okay? And what makes port port is that first it needs to start in the Douro Valley. Okay? If it's not in the Douro Valley first, it's not port. Okay? So, where do you guys start? It's easy. Always from the youngest to the oldest. From the left to the right. Okay? So, white, ruby, H white, Tawny. You guys find Lagrima, LBV, Tawny. Okay? If you guys need anything or have any type of question, just call me. Okay? So, cheers to you guys. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
The next day started off rainy, so we decided to visit the Mosteira de Batalha because it was mostly indoors and it wasn't raining too hard, so it was quite enjoyable. And after that, the weather cleared up and it turned into a nice sunny day, which was perfect for an afternoon spent exploring the Castelo de Ourém. And after all that walking, we decided we were hungry, so we stopped in at Taberna de Matilde for some tapas. The tapas was excellent. Everything was homemade, locally sourced, and absolutely delicious. It's in a really old stone building, and just in the small town of Ourém, just as you come down from the castle. So it was actually near where we parked the car, which was very convenient. If you wish to visit the Founders Chapel, the two cloisters of the monastery, as well as the unfinished chapel, which I highly recommend seeing everything while you're there, there is a charge. So it is €6 for each adult. A lot of the monuments and museums are free to enter on Sundays for residents. So that is something to keep in mind if you are a resident here and you would like to see some of the different historical locations in Portugal. So not all, but many of them offer free access for residents on Sundays. So we didn't go on a Sunday. So it was €6 a person, which still is definitely worth it. And I highly recommend to see everything while you're there. The following day was beautiful sunny weather and perfect for lots of walking. So that's exactly what we did. We headed to the natural monument of the dinosaurs first, and that was followed by the Grutas de Miradeira. And we attempted to finish off the day by visiting the Cascata de Fornea. Unfortunately, it must be a seasonal waterfall because there was no water. It was just a dry riverbed and a cliff. But it was still enjoyable and a beautiful hike. It was a short hike. But we had already done a lot of kilometers of walking, so it was perfect. One of the things that we wanted to share with our friends was the welcoming and generous nature of the Portuguese people. So we wanted to share that part of our experience here with them as well. We were able to do that by visiting our friend George, and George's Uncle Joe made a delicious lunch for us and also gave us a tour of his adega. So we got to try homemade wine, homemade port, and homemade aguardente. So it's very strong. It was delicious, but yes, in very small amounts. Thank you so much to George and Uncle Joe for accommodating us and welcoming us and our friends, and yeah, just showing us the typical Portuguese hospitality. And after that, we explored Viseu, and there's lots of old bridges there and just a beautiful town square. One of the bridges is an ancient Roman bridge that spans the river in town, and it's amazing to think that something from the time of the Romans is still standing and in perfect condition. Obviously, it's been maintained, but it's amazing to see. From there, we made our way over to Tomar because we wanted to visit the Castelo de Tomar. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and the castle was founded in 1160, and it was the last stronghold of the Knights Templar. So it's a really cool place to visit. The castle grounds are free to enter. If you wish to enter the monastery, it's a €6 per person charge. If you go on a Sunday, it is free for residents. It was getting later in the day and we didn't really have time to do both, so we decided to just do the castle grounds, and they are spectacular, so I highly recommend it. This is how professionals open wine.
It pulls all the cork out and it's dry.
Yeah.
That's it. It's through. You can see the colors. It's through. Yep.
Wow.
Just get rid of any dust.
This one, in October 2001.
Right after you came back. Right after he came home. Oh, it smells like candy, like orange peel, like candy
Orange
orange.
peel.
You're gonna love that. You're gonna love that.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I haven't sipped yet.
Oh, sorry.
I
I
just
thought you did.
breathed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I just breathed
I
it
thought
in.
you just absorbed it.
All Polish. Wow. So the Polish, we had a huge influx of Polish.
Isn't that like
immigrants
candy?
in the 80s.
Let's get the cork out.
Mhm.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Obrigada.
Have a santé.
Cheers.
Amen.
So
Cheers, guys.
Good. That is like candy.
I know. Isn't it?
That's dangerous.
That's port.
Yeah,
That's port one. Old. This one is old. Very old.
So far, we're starting with some cheese and olives. And what was the name in Portuguese from this?
How do you say
Torneira.
Ollada. It's sausage. It's bread sausage. Portuguese
Bread sausage. Homemade Portuguese bread sausage. Looks delicious. The next day trip was going to a few different areas and showing our friends where our journey in Portugal began. So when we first arrived, we stayed in Alcobaça. So we brought them to the Santana market, or Mercado de Santana, and that is the biggest market that we've been to so far. After that, we went to São Martinho de Porto, which is one of our favorite beaches. It's kind of it's a touristy beach town, but it's very nice, and it usually has calm water because the bay there is protected. And then we made our way over to Nazaré to show them the military fort that is now a surf museum and home of the big wave surf competitions. It was actually the calmest I have ever seen the water there. So they didn't get to experience any big waves, but it was still pretty cool. And then we took a quick tour through Alcobaça on our way home. For the grand finale of our European vacation with our friends, we decided to do a day trip to Sintra. I actually recommend more than one day if you have the time, but we did what we could with the time we had, and it's absolutely beautiful. There's so much to see there. A few things to note though. When you are going up to the Palacio Nacional de Pena, as well as the park and all the other sightseeing attractions that are in that area, you're not able to access the area with your private car. So you will have to take a bus or a taxi to get to the entrance to the park. We took an Uber, and it cost us €8, including tip, for all four of us to get to the entrance of the park with the Uber. You do have to be careful. Sometimes the Uber drivers are not allowed through by security, but we were lucky and we didn't have any problems. Another thing to note, if you are there later in the day, like we were, and we were there basically when the park was closing and after the last bus has already gone down, the taxi drivers are taking advantage of a captive audience and charging €5 per person to bring you back down to the main village where your car is parked. So we opted to walk instead. There's lots of hiking trails in the area, and it took us about 45 minutes to walk from the entrance of the park back down to where our car was parked. If you come by bus, taxi, or tuk-tuk, they will bring you out up here. And then you still need to get up to the castle at the top. If you take a bus, taxi, or tuk-tuk, it's going to bring you close by this entrance here. And just outside where you see the line, you have to have your tickets in advance, and then they scan it as you enter. So after they scan your ticket, you can get a map off to the side here. And they have some washrooms in this building at the bottom. And you can slowly make your way up along the trail. Okay. So if you are walking part of the way up to the Pina Palace in Sintra, you definitely want good hiking shoes. It's a very nice trail. It has a fair amount of shade from all the big trees. But it's a nature trail, so don't wear flip-flops. Thank you for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please give us a like. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Okay, bye!